Alright guys, I'm back with a new unboxing, and this mask is the Trick or Treat Studios Dr. Decker mask from the movie Nightbreed. So I'm going to go ahead and open this thing up. Mask right here. And I just literally woke up. Here it is. Looks really accurate. All the little stitches and stuff are painted on there, and the lace is actual lace from the back of it. Too bad they didn't put actual eyelets in it, because over time, if you wore this a lot, those holes get wore out and it'll rip through. So I might go back to actual eyelets in it. And it's got an actual zipper on here. And the buttons, I think, are sculpted into the mask. And he's probably the most accurate ones you can get out there of this character. So, here it is. It's got all the stitches and stuff sculpted on there. Also got some stuff the other day from Mego Boss or Boss. Got these two old school Kenner figures. Got a Alien and a Terminator. Also got these Funko Reaction figures. Got a Predator, Alien, and Michael Myers and Jason. Wish they were still in package, but that's okay. Also got this Terminator and that Alien and this Hugger. I forgot what I did with. I'll put there. Also got these Five Nights at Freddy's figures. Got all these at GameStop. There's one more than I need, which I have coming in the mail. So I'll do a video on this when I get them all. So thanks for watching the video, guys, and see you guys in the next one. Alright, guys. Decided to add another part to this video because the unboxing I did was pretty crappy. I had just literally woken up and I was in that zombie-like state when you just wake up, so video wasn't all that great. So I decided that after having this mask for a couple of days, that I'd do a review talking about it. And I am going to do a fair critique of this mask, because I have made 4 of this character, 4 masks of this character. The first 3 were from a mold I did a long time ago. The sculpt wasn't bad, but the mold was a crappy mold because I was new to making molds, and hell, I still suck at making molds today. So the seam line was pretty noticeable, and it was a huge seam line on it. But anyways, sculpt wasn't bad, but I made the sculpt a little too small because I didn't realize latex shrunk at that time. So when the mask cured, they shrunk down. They were too small to wear, and I gave one of the copies to Zach Fleming and another to Slasher Movies 410, which has a video up of it. And I have a third one that I still have, but I can't find it. Fourth one I did was this mask here, which I'm going to be using to compare to this one. It was made, I did a sculpture of Dr. Decker on an armature head, and then I took latex and mixed it with latex house paint but I'd recommend just using straight latex. I'm going to explain that in just a minute. And then I took, fabric from an old t-shirt and I soaked that into the mixture and laid that over top to make the mask, and it worked pretty well. But with the latex paint in it, it made it more like a paint than actual latex, so it was a lot stiffer. It's not stiff now because I'm outside filming this and it is like 98 degrees out, so it's softened that up. But it's usually very stiff and it didn't really want to hold together, because latex can be used as a glue for fabric, but with all that house paint mixed in it, it made it more like a paint, so it didn't want to hold the fabric together. But where the areas where the fabric was coming undone was where I just so happened to need to stitch this thing up, so that worked out pretty well. There were a few areas like right here and here that didn't require stitching that I just glued together, but aside from that, still turned out pretty good. I did real stitching on this mask, but this is a handmade mask. This is a mass-produced mask, so there isn't real stitching on it, but it is painted in there, so it is really nice that they've gone through and painted each individual thread. So although it's not actually stitched, it looks like it's stitched. A lot of people talk shit about mass-produced masks because they're mass-produced. There are some collectors out there that think that to be a quote-unquote real collector, you have to have only indie masks, but I think that's bullshit. To me, if the mask is good, the mask is good despite whether it's mass-produced or handmade. And when it comes to Trick or Treat Studios, Trick or Treat Studios makes by far the best mass-produced mask that you can possibly buy. People may talk shit about them, but the hell with those people. They're ignorant and you don't really need to listen to what they say. Trust me, Trick or Treat Studios makes fantastic products. Now, I'm just going to be talking about this mask. As you can see, my mask is really gray looking, and this is a bit more of a tan looking, but depending on the lighting that you have this guy in, it can sort of, look grayish or look tan. With this mask, I painted gray and then a black wash over top of it. With the old ones I would paint them brown and then stipple on gray paint. But if you really pay close attention to the movie, this paint job is actually the most accurate one. And I will say it, out of all the Dr. Decker masks that you could buy, this is by far the most accurate one. Even more accurate than the independent masks that are available now. Because there are a few that are out there, and Creation X used to make Dr. Decker masks. Not anymore, but they used to, and the Trick or Treat Studios is even more accurate than theirs is. And I'm going to say it's more accurate than mine is. The zipper in the mouth is a real working zipper. Let me just demonstrate it here. It is a real working zipper. The zipper pull tab is metal, but the rest of it's plastic, but that's okay, it still looks good. And that is stitched in, and on this one it's stitched in, but on the first three that I did, I glued them in, and gluing them in just they held it in place, but it made the mask very stiff and it didn't want to flex. So if you're going to make one of these, sew it in. The buttons are not real buttons, they're sculpted onto the mask, but they still look good, so that doesn't really matter. I mean, as long as it looks good, that doesn't matter if they're real buttons or not. I'm going to use real buttons on my mask. I actually made these buttons myself. I bought some buttons from Walmart, I think, and I made a mold off of them and cast it resin copies. Shit, thing almost fell over. Got the lace on the back of mine, and they have laces on the back of the Trick or Treat Studios one. It's real laces. It's not sculpted on and put on there. It's actual laces. The eyelets on here are not real eyelets, whereas on mine I have real eyelets. The ones on mine are a little bit messed up because I didn't have the proper setting tool for these particular eyelets. But the eyelets are still real eyelets, whereas on these they are fake. And that's one of the biggest issues I have with this mask, the Trick or Treat Studios version, is that they're fake eyelets. I know that if they put real eyelets onto the back of the mask, that would drive up the price of the mask. But at the end of the day, if you're just going to be displaying this mask, then it's not a big deal because the eyelets still look pretty good. They look really real. This one, some of the silver paint did get on the rest of the mask, but that's not a big deal. But if this is a mask that you plan on wearing a lot, like say for a costume or whatever, I'd recommend going and buying actual eyelets and putting them in there, because over time, wearing this and pulling the ties to put the mask on and off, that's going to wear down this latex, and eventually the strings are going to rip through the latex. So what I'd recommend doing is getting some leather and cutting out little squares or circles of leather and using contact cement and glue them in behind each of the holes. I'm going to let the contact cement completely dry and cure. And contact cement is a latex based adhesive, so that'll keep the leather glued in. And you could just do that, glue the leather in to reinforce the leather. To reinforce the latex, my apologies. Because with that, it's freaking leather, so it'll definitely strengthen up that hole. But if you want to strengthen it up even further, put actual eyelets in over top of the leather. Make sure you glue the leather on the inside. You don't want to glue it on the outside. I know most of you have common sense and can figure that out on yourself, but there's some idiots out there that would probably actually glue the leather on the outside. But no, glue the leather on the inside. They have the eyelets on the outside. There are video tutorials that you can look up on how to set eyelets. But when you do it in latex, you need to either have a fabric casted inside the latex while you're casting it. You could use burlap or cheesecloth. I use fiberglass cloth. That seems to work the best. But if you have a cast that's already cast, I'd recommend gluing in a piece of leather with contact cement. Not thick leather, like thinner leather. Because if it's thick leather, it's going to make it too thick and you can't put an eyelet in there. That's the biggest issue I have with this is, the eyelets aren't real. Since I'm only going to be displaying this, is not a big deal. Another issue is I have the string. I'm very, 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 very impressed that they have real laces on the back. But the string is just really crappy string. It's just really cheap, crappily woven together string. But that's not a big deal because you can take that string out and get an actual shoestring and use that to lace it up. I might actually replace the string on this, although I am just going to be displaying this. It just looks like cheap string, so I'm probably going to get some black parachute cord and lace it up with this, which that's what I used here for this mask, was black parachute cord. Like I said, the stitches on these aren't real stitches, but they are going back and hand painted, so that really brings out the look of the mask. Although it's not real stitches, each stitch is individually painted, so that's good. Plus, if they were actually stitched into the mask, that would drive the price up. The holes in the buttons are a lot bigger than that of an actual button, which is a good thing because the holes in the buttons are what you're looking through when you wear the mask, so having much bigger holes on this thing makes it easier to see out of. Paint job on this thing is beautifully done, and it's very accurate to the movie. In some scenes in the movie it looks tan, in some scenes it looks gray. And if you look at the artist masks, they either paint them tan or gray. A lot of the guys paint them gray, and some of them paint them tan. Some people repaint them tan, but this here is the truly accurate paint job, because if you really pay close attention to it in the movie, it looks exactly like this. It's a tan base, but there's smudges of gray all over it, and that's why in some scenes it looks gray and in some it looks tan. And there's also some smudges of red all over it. So the paint job on this thing is beautifully executed. The sculpt is spot on. This is by far the most accurate sculpt that you can get of Dr. Decker, and the most accurate paint job. Really nothing else to say about it. It's a great mask. Like I said, it's the most accurate one out there you can get, and for the price, you can't beat it. And some of these flaws you could fix yourself. These stitches not being real, you could go back with thread and needle and add real stitches if you wanted to. This string on the back you can replace, which I plan on replacing mine. You can put actual eyelets in, so you can fix all of those mistakes on this. Well, they're not mistakes, but you can fix all those things if you want it to be just a little bit more higher quality. And same thing with the buttons. You could probably glue in actual buttons over these eyes if you wanted to. So, all the things that people could possibly complain about, you can modify to make this thing better. because, you know, there are always people bitching about mass-produced masks just because they're mass-produced. And yeah, indie masks have real buttons on the eyes and have real eyelets and stuff, but this is mass-produced, you know. That's the only flaw with this mask, is that it's mass-produced. But you can make it better, because if they had actual buttons and actual stitches and actual eyelets on the back, that would drive the price of this up. And you know, the average Halloween goer is not going to spend that much money on a Halloween mask. But like I said, all those things you can modify and make better on this mask. The only thing, well, you technically could modify it, but the zipper on the mouth is on backwards. If you look at the zipper on my mask, it's on in the accurate position, because in the movie, the pull tab is supposed to be in this position when it's closed. If I can get it there. Damn it, there you go. You know, the pull tab's supposed to be here when it's closed and over here when it's open, because in the movie, when he wore the mask, he wore it with the mouth open, and it's very awkward to do without getting in the way of the camera. I apologize. So in the movie, he wore the mask with the zipper open and the pull tab was in this corner. Whereas on this mask, when the mouth is closed, the pull tab is in that corner, which isn't accurate to the film. That's really the only thing that's not accurate about it. So, but the mask still looks fantastic. And like I said, it's the best Dr. Decker mask that you can get. If you're on a budget, this is perfect. You can't really get any better than this as far as looks wise. And you know, it looks spot on, although the buttons aren't real and these stitches aren't real and the eyelets here on the back aren't real. They look real. You know, just looking at this, you couldn't tell that those were fake. The only way you can tell they're fake is, well, with the eyelets, you know, you can touch them and tell they're fake. But with the stitches and the buttons, you can't tell that those are fake until you get up close and personal and handle this mask. That's when you find out those are fake. But at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter. As long as it looks real, it doesn't matter. Because like I said, people are going to talk shit about this mask just because it's mass produced. But despite what other people think, this is a great mask. It's got a decent thickness to the mask. It's about average mask thickness. And it's just fantastic. Like I said, Trick or Treat Studios makes by far the best mass-produced masks you can buy. So if you can't afford all the indie masks, don't feel bad, because you can get masks from Trick or Treat Studios that are just as good as the indie masks. So, don't want to drag this video on for too long. If you're looking for a good Dr. Decker, this is a good place to get it. Because like I said, it's the most accurate looking mask that you can get for this character. And for all the indie mask makers watching, I do apologize if I offended you. I myself am a indie mask maker. But I do admit that this mask is better than my mask. So, nothing else to really say about this. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.